We normally do a regular summer school, but we wanted to create something different this summer. We wanted it to be a learning lab for not just students, but also for teachers and for the adults who help support kids. And so we called it Summer Sandbox. Sandbox meaning someplace where the teachers can play around to unleash their creativity.
Most of our kids have been distance learning or some type of blended learning for the entire year and a quarter from last year. So it's been a struggle to get kids back into school, get adjusted, get used to it. And we wanted to give them an experience to be back in school Monday through Friday, all day if possible, and do fun things.
We're involving community partners as well. We have Mele Murals and we have Luluku Farms, who are also providing an outdoor learning space for kids so they can see that the learning doesn't just happen within the four walls of a classroom, but can be applied anywhere that they go in the community.
So at Luluku Farms, we learned a lot about plants and what they do.
The kids are learning that farming is a very big part of the Hawaiian culture. And all of the things that we learn from farming, from growing it to putting it on our table to eat and feed our family, is an entire process that we can learn from.
They're with us from Monday through Friday. On Monday is our ho'olauna, so we start off with just getting to know the place. We have the students introduce themselves to Luluku, and then we talk about stories about Kāneʻohe, stories about Luluku, and get them acclimated to what āina is, what our ahupua'a is, what our mokupuni and our moku is. And then we talk about the importance of āina. So we do a myriad of activities. We do everything from taking care of the kalo beds. Sometimes we do some planting, we do plant identification and the uses of plants. And then we end our segment with kalo. And so they get to try different things. They try pa'iai, they try ko, sugarcane, all kinds of ulu. They eat ulu every day probably.
We're actually helping the garden and the taro to get bigger. And it's like we're helping them, and at the same time it's fun.
The retention of the information that's provided is amazing. Like that content downloads into them. And when we come back to it, in fact, I was just walking the other day and a student identified some plants here on campus and made connections about, wait, we have this here on our campus? That's up at the farm. And he's 6. And so, you know, the Ike Hawaii or the Ike Kupuna, knowledge of our kupuna, is being downloaded into these little ones in a very powerful way. I think that's going to extend way beyond just this summer.
We really want to teach our children to recreate and be on the land and to enjoy malama āina and to enjoy aloha āina, because that's a part of our life. We should never let that go.
So the kids have been going up there for a week at a time to learn those things. And then they come to us with that knowledge and understanding of how to malama āina. And then we've been bringing in guest musicians once a week to speak to the children, to share a little bit about mele or mo'olelo of Kāneʻohe, to help deepen their understanding and their connection to their place. For us, we find that if the children have a connection to it, they're more likely to take care of it when they're older. So we're trying to do that at the beginning, give them some inspiration. We teach them to meditate, to calm down, to quiet their brain a little bit, and to be mindful, to be aware of what's around them, what they hear, what they smell. And then we draw and talk about the ideas. We put that together into a sketch, and that's how we get the ideas for the wall. Then the children will come and we'll paint the wall with them.
It was really fun because I got to prime the wall and I also got to paint it with colors.
For both Mele Murals and for Luluku Farms, there's a direct way in which students can learn Hawaiian culture. They have a greater appreciation of where they live and how they can respect that going into the future, so that we're not overtaxing the land, we're not creating a more harmful environment. We want kids to be leaders in their community. We want them to be alakaʻi, to take on that kuleana, or that responsibility of caring for and making it more sustainable. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do here. You know, whether it's through Mele Murals, whether it's through Luluku Farms, whether it's through the project-based learning that students are doing in the classroom, they're seeing how they can be self-sufficient. They can see how they can be a positive influence on their families and their peers. They can even teach adults about the things that they're learning.
I have a student whose ohana, malama āina. I can tell because once we split up into groups and we're doing plant identification, he knew so much more than I did about the plants. He was telling us what it tastes like, what it smelled like. He knew how to deal and work with them more than I did. And so I stepped back and allowed him to teach our whole group. He opened a kukuina right on the ground and he was passing it out and we're all smelling it, and I had not even thought of those things. And so having this open space again for us as kumu, as adults, to say, hey, our kids have ike too. They come with their own little packages of knowledge, and having a space like this where it's open and understanding that we're gonna allow them to share. We're gonna allow them to lead. We're gonna say, hey, I didn't know that. Can you come and share this with us? And they feel so empowered, like kumu is listening to me now. She's the haumana and I'm the kumu. And I think those kinds of experiences will, again, extend beyond our summer program.
You get to experience what's outside instead of just sitting on the chairs doing work. And at the same time, you can do work and playing. So I think I think we should be doing that more often.
Overall, I think the children are happy, excited, engaged, interested in everything they're doing. The parents also feel it. I've gotten many phone calls, many emails about other things, and they're like, hey, Miss Yamada, I just want to tell you, my daughter came home super happy about learning about this plant and she wanted to share, or my son came home sharing about this akua that he learned about. So I think the kids are really excited to be back and so engaged in what they're learning.
There's this one boy, he's actually from last week's workshops, but he's asked and his parents granted him permission to stay with us this week because he loved it, and he's a smart kid. And if you don't challenge those smart ones, the mind wanders, right? The eyes wander, the hands wander. So for him to come back and go from feeling a little bit shame about not quite fitting in or being a little different and not understanding why he's like that, to, oh, I'm valued here, I'm doing something, I can be a leader, and then starting to instruct the other kids on how to do things and taking responsibility, that for me that's a huge win, because in small ways you've shifted his life, you've changed his perception of himself, his identity, self-worth.
When you have administrators and teachers and surrounding agencies and partners working together to build something that we know is going to take some work and take some time, but we know that it's worth our efforts and time, that is very exciting, because we can have a one-year program, a two-year program, and make an impact. What we really want to see is perpetuity. We want to see things that are going to always be there to help the children and always be there to help the kids. And everybody that's involved are wonderful people, and I think we have the common thread is that we want to do something for the children and the families of our community.
We are very thankful that we're given the resources to be able to connect with our partners and to be able to create this collaborative learning experience for our kids. It's like a ripple in the water in terms of having impact far beyond the classroom, far beyond their desk, but really branching out into their families, into the community. And I think having partners work with you, bringing people who have their own knowledge, are showing kids that learning can occur everywhere, and they can seek knowledge elsewhere. It doesn't only have to come from a book, and books are really great and they're very important to learning, but it can also come from their elders, it can also come from their neighbors, it can also come from their grandparents. And I think that's what we want them to see.